It's 2 a.m. You're lying awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying a minor conversation from hours ago, or mapping out a confrontation that hasn't even happened. Your brain refuses to sleep, asking a continuous loop of what-ifs. This exhaustion regularly affects highly intelligent, emotionally perceptive people. They are not weak, and they are not necessarily suffering from clinical anxiety. Psychologists classify this pattern as maladaptive rumination. It happens because the brain possesses a highly effective pattern recognition system, always scanning the environment, processing interactions, and searching for meaning. The mind executes perfectly, but the system never receives a neurological signal to stop. Overthinking is a sharp, powerful cognitive engine, running at maximum capacity without a brake pedal. To see how this works, we have to look at two specific neurological structures. The prefrontal cortex is the part of your brain responsible for planning and analysis. The default mode network acts as the background processing system, generating your internal monologue. In a chronic overthinker, both of these networks stay highly active, even during periods of supposed downtime. The mind remains continuously online, auditing past events and drafting responses to conversations that may never occur. This relentless cognitive habit rarely starts in adulthood. For a massive portion of overthinkers, the pattern takes root during childhood or adolescence. It typically develops in environments where outcomes felt unpredictable, households where moods shifted without warning, or where making a minor mistake carried a disproportionate consequence. In those environments, a young brain adopts a logical survival strategy. It learns to hyper-anticipate. If you can predict every possible outcome, you can protect yourself from danger. Seen through this developmental lens, overthinking is a successful adaptation. It's a capable nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do to survive. Not all overthinking is destructive. Psychologists identify two distinct types: reflective rumination, where a person turns inward to process emotions, and brooding rumination, a passive, distressing pattern of dwelling on problems. The trap lies in how easily the brain glides between the two. A healthy moment of reflection can slide almost invisibly into a paralyzing spiral of brooding. Because the thinking feels productive, it is difficult to notice when you cross the line. Cognitive psychologists call this the illusion of mental progress. The mind feels like it is solving a problem, but it is actually just looping in place. Dopamine is the chemical culprit behind this illusion. The brain releases small amounts of dopamine during the act of problem solving, even if that problem solving is entirely imagined. When you run through a scenario and construct elaborate mental arguments, the brain is rewarded for the physical act of analyzing the angles. It gets a hit of dopamine not for arriving at an answer, but simply for the act of worrying. Telling someone to just stop thinking about it is neurologically naive. Their brain has a built-in chemical incentive to keep the anxiety loop running. This scatter plot chart shows a direct correlation between rumination and social perception. According to a 2013 study published in Psychological Science, people who report higher levels of rumination also score significantly higher on measures of cognitive empathy. Cognitive empathy is the ability to understand and anticipate how others might think or feel. Overthinkers are naturally more sensitive to social nuance, hyper-aware of how words land, and attuned to the unspoken emotional texture of a room. The exact engine that makes overthinkers remarkably perceptive is also what drains them. They notice everything, carrying the heavy weight of perceived possibilities without ever reaching a clear resolution. The mind cannot think its way out of every problem. Some situations simply have to be felt, decided, or released rather than solved. Therapists working with chronic overthinkers use a strategy called cognitive diffusion. The practice doesn't try to stop the thoughts. Instead, it changes the spatial relationship the person has to them. It shifts the monologue from a fused panic, "I must figure this out," to a defused reframe, "My brain is generating a concern." One pulls you in, the other grants psychological distance, allowing you to observe the thought without being consumed by it. The goal is not to eradicate the overthinking mind. The challenge is to use patience to gently teach a hyper-vigilant nervous system that it is finally safe enough to rest.